Hello, everyone, all of our participants. Welcome to the Living Book for lingap-canada. I would like to introduce our host, Jean Kawagas, to kick things off.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, good evening, all of you. I would like to call on Noreen Berkes to give the welcome and introduction for tonight's event. Noreen, please.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. For those of you who had attended our first webinar, we are happy to see you back. Welcome. And for the ones that are just attending for the first time, welcome as well, a warm welcome. On behalf of lingap-canada, the board of directors, and the members of lingap. The Living Book Project, just to give a little bit of a background, was inspired by the human library movement that began in Denmark in 2000. And it allows real people who are called living books to share interesting moments and specific themes in their life stories and experiences. The Living Book features stories and conversations on the lives of Filipino-Canadians or the lives of people from other cultures that have become intertwined with the Filipino culture through marriage or other relationships, and who have settled or grown up in Alberta or other parts of Canada. Our participants, our readers, will listen to the stories of their selected living book, after which they can engage in a conversation with the book through questions and reflections. The stories of Lingap's living books seek to raise awareness of the challenges, the struggles, and achievements of Filipino-Canadians before they arrived in Canada or during their lives in Canada. And it is our hope that these stories will inspire and empower you and enhance the visibility of Filipinos in Canada's multicultural society. I would like to give this over to Jean Kawagas now, who will introduce our second living book. Jean?
Thank you, Noreen, for that very clear introduction and the background on why we are doing this living book. Well, I'm supposed to introduce our living book, but we have already posted a bit of his bio on the website, and he's going to talk about himself. So I'm not going to say anything much more about our living book, except to call on him. So friends, our dear friends of Lingap, here is our living book for this month of November, JonJon Rivero. Come on, JonJon.
Thank you, everybody. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Magandang gabi sa iyong lahat. Good evening. It is my pleasure and honor to be here with you. Thank you so much to lingap-canada and to all of you. I see many mentors in my life here. I have the big gallery viewing of all my favorite Edmontonian and Filipino-Canadians here. Thank you so much for being a big part of my growth, which I will get into as I guess, a Filipino-Canadian BALIKBAYAN. Before I begin, may I do a piece? I was inspired by last month's living book. If I may also do a spoken word, which I believe summarizes my journey in the Philippines. Would it be all right?
Sure.
It is called Chicken Soup for the Global Citizen's Soul. And I've incorporated a little bit of some Ilocano folk music with it. Creative energy flowing through our veins, a new collective conscience being shared by our brains. Tapping into this beauty, you and I will never be the same. There's no time like the present. It's time to change. It's the human revolution. You cannot stop it. A life of its own. No speed gun can clock it. People of all colors, get on board this rocket. Time to be enlightened. Get my hands out of my pocket. No more just watching from my comfortable chair. Quit judging, disrespecting, start giving a care. No more talking, need more walking. This is what I must dare, to be a global citizen who doesn't sit back and stare. The soul of the world is asking all of us, keep moving forward. Don't move to the back of the bus. Take stand for what I believe. Don't settle for dust, people, for peace, unity, God's love and trust. Gaia is getting run down. She needs more rest. Too much toxicity, some pneumonia in her chest, fighting off bacteria that's killing her breast. No more milk for the world. There'll be nothing left. However, listen to the soul of the world. You'll find silence. Inner peace and wisdom. The path is not violent. Breathe in the love broth. Nourishing abundance. Chicken soup for the souls. Open up and let the sun in. Inspiration being filled by divine spirit. Live with passion and meaning. Just reap the benefit. Unlimited potential. All the candles lit. Follow the light of your soul and find your bliss. Mother Earth is asking all its daughters and sons to listen to her call. Revolution's just begun. Fight using dance, art, and self-expression. A powerful way to be a global citizen. Oh, how about it? BALIKBAYAN. Creative energy flowing through our veins, a new collective conscience being shared by our brains. Tap into this beauty. You and I will never be the same. There's no time like the present. It's time to change. Thank you. Thank you for having me and allowing me to express that. That song, if you are familiar with Filipino folk songs and Ilocano music, that is Pamulina Win, which is kind of like a love song. The reason I played it on this harmonica specifically is this was my father's harmonica. It was old school. You can see that he used like one of those old markers to get the letters in. And it's so old that you can't even see his name. But you can see it used to say Dr. Jose Z for Zamora, Rivero MD. So I inherited this harmonica, which has been in his life and now in our family's life for a long time. So I wanted to honor my dad's side, which is the Rivero side. He's from Mekawayan, Bulacan, with that song. And in fact, why do I use this harmonica? This is actually a very powerful tool. Other than this being a priceless family heirloom, this instrument symbolizes my work, my life's work, because this symbolizes not only my Filipino cultural heritage, which I'm still continuing to learn about, but it also signifies what I spoke about in my spoken word, self-expression and storytelling through music. But not only that, I'm also an occupational therapist and a certified trauma specialist. I use this on the daily basis. Not just this instrument, but a variety of different instruments. Part of my story that I'm going to share with you today is going to be told through, I guess, historical events in my life, but more importantly, the symbolism and what it symbolizes. Today, I want to share with you three main things. So what does the BALIKBAYAN mean to me? What does that mean to me? Being a Filipino-Canadian, growing up in Regina, Saskatchewan, moving to Edmonton, and continuing work, of course, in the Filipino community here in Alberta in Canada, but also back home in the Philippines. That's one of the key takeaways. Number two will be a call to action, and maybe it's not even necessarily a new call. It's just a reminder of action, and everyday action can be small, or it could also be grand. And then the third one is a gratitude. I would like to honor the people that have made sacrifices. So of course, my family and the people here in this chat room right now, and of course, the people who are going to be watching this on the internet, but the people right now celebrating this time with me, you have all made a huge impact in my life and have made me the person that I am. So let me start off by saying that I identify as a Filipino-Canadian that is continuing to search for his identity and also create his identity through, I guess, philanthropy, through entrepreneurship, and through activism. So as an occupational therapist and as a certified trauma specialist, my wife, Paula Audrey Rivero, and I, among other BALIKBAYAN project team members, have been returning to the Philippines to support programs of self-expression, adapted physical activity, as well as seminars on trauma-informed care since 2007, working directly with some organizations such as Streetlight Philippines in Tacloban City, Leyte, as well as different organizations such as the Philippine Pediatric Society or Association and A Child's Dream in Baguio. And I'm going to get to how we started that, but I just wanted to provide some context as to what do we do there, right? And what lens I'm coming from. More importantly, the project isn't just about service, isn't just about self-expression, but it's also about education and education of our members. So every time I go there, I learn more and more about my family roots, but also learn more and more about human beings who are going through challenges. Now, here's the catch-22. You don't have to go very far to learn about challenges. You can just go outside your home, or even within your home, or even in front of the mirror, and understand that you have challenges. We all have challenges. But being a BALIKBAYAN and the project is to acknowledge that we all have challenges. However, we also have strengths and talents that make us awesome. And we are all worthy of love. So our work has brought us to this 360-degree full circle. Initially, at the beginning of my project in 2007, I thought, well, I'm going to try and give back, and I'm going to give a lot. And what I've learned after going back 11 times, I believe, is that I've received way more in terms of emotional intelligence, spiritual guidance, as well as just physical love and presence from the children that we serve. We've probably interacted and reached probably close to 5,000 children and adults who are either living on the streets or working as professionals or community members in the areas that we have served. And I'll tell you, every time that we go back, it's never a feeling of I'm going to give and it's going to be one way. It's always been, and I can speak on behalf of my wife as well, Paula, that we're always receiving way more. And a lot of times people have shared that, well, JonJon, what is your exit strategy? And to be honest, we don't have an exit strategy because we're not there to come and go. it's a lifelong project that I'm committed to, and Paula and my daughter now, who's 2.5, are committed for life. And if it wasn't for this pandemic, we'd actually be in the Philippines around this time every year. So, anyways, I digress. Let's go back to the beginning. My mother is from San Pedro, Laguna, and my father is from Mekawayan, Bulacan. My dad comes from a family of 12 children. He is the youngest, and he was born in 1940. So if my oldest tita or auntie was still alive, she would be, I think, over 100 years old, which is incredible because she's old enough to be my great grandmother. So my father was the youngest of 12 and the benefactor of that. He benefited greatly. He grew up on a dirt floor. My parents both are educated. My mother is the youngest as well. So the two bunsos fell in love. They actually ended up meeting in Edmonton, Alberta. So going back to my family, I come from very hardworking families. Both my mother and my father are high achievers. And my dad studied medicine at the University of Santo Tomas. My mother is also a graduate of the U of A and received her bachelor's degree in education. And it was in Edmonton that they actually met and fell in love. So I've seen lots of family photos early on of their relationship. They loved singing. They loved socializing. They loved Philippine dance. They loved celebrating that with other Filipinos and Canadians in general here in Edmonton, Alberta. They would always host potlucks, and they would share Philippine folk songs. And they would actually teach their Canadian friends tinikling and pandango sa ilaw, and maglalatik, the coconut dances. And they would have this wonderful cultural exchanges. My mother always talks about those are the good old days when you could have someone over, cook Filipino food. They would share maybe some Ukrainian pedehe or some pierogies, and they'd have this cultural, clash of mix and mash and sharing. And my mom said that those were the best days because they were young, they were adventurous, and they were learning about other people's cultures while feeling safe in Canada to share that. So my parents moved to the East Coast, and eventually they found a residency position for my dad to apply to in Regina. And my mother also found a teaching job with the Regina Catholic School Board. My brother was born in 1977, and 5 years later, I was born, 1982. So my mom and my dad were some of the first Filipinos to immigrate to Regina, Saskatchewan. And they founded the Regina Maharlika Dance Group with 3 other Filipino families, and they would celebrate at Regina's cultural arts festival called Mosaic. Very similar to Edmonton, Alberta's Heritage Days, or whatever type of festival annually across Canada that your city might have. And so I was exposed to these dances, and my brother and I, at a very young age. I didn't actually speak Tagalog, and I still probably don't speak very well speak Tagalog very well, but I try. But growing up, it was very much you can speak to your parents in English without getting scolded. That's the way we grew up in Canada. But my mom and dad would speak to us in Tagalog, or they would speak to us in English. I also attended French immersion, and I grew up with, I like to say, the United Nations. For some reason, in Regina, Saskatchewan, my class was kind of an anomaly. All my best friends came from a variety of different cultures, where you were actually visibly different. So I grew up, I had a lot of Canadian friends who are Caucasian. I also grew up with Filipino friends. I had some African Canadian friends. I had some friends who are from Barbados. Their families from Barbados. So you can see my exposure to a variety of different ethnicities and backgrounds were very much diverse. However, I always had a feeling of trying to fit in. And that's not necessarily the culture of Regina or in Canada, but maybe just the state of my own being, my own personality, and some of my insecurities, which I will get into. So a very important part of the story is that at age 2, my father was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And this brain tumor was squishing his brain from the inside. And so my father needed an emergency operation. He had been complaining about headaches and challenges up until that point. And a lot of times, a lot of the other doctors, his colleagues would just think, you know what, Gloria, which is my mom's name, Gloria trying to say, he's under a lot of stress. He's trying to get into, he's trying to do well as a resident. And little did they know that there was this brain tumor squishing. And so my mother was left to decide on his behalf what to do. And one of the options was we can try and create a shunt, and maybe he would have a better quality of life until he passes away. Or the other option would be to go and try and remove as much of the tumor as possible. So my mother decided on behalf of our family and on behalf of his health to remove as much of the tumor as possible. The doctor saved his life. However, he was never the same again. So if you can imagine a 40, I guess he would have been 1940, 42, 44 year, a 44-year-old strikingly handsome, very talented gentleman who used to have a black belt in karate, judo, a musician who could sing and dance, and a doctor to boot, and the head of the financial, responsibilities of our family, now become disabled with a brain tumor. And not only that, have to relearn how to use your body. So he wakes up and he's having trouble with his speech. He's having trouble with his memory. He's having trouble just living. And so to me, that challenge has actually been one of the most pivotal things in my life as a therapist, which led me to my work. So here's the beautiful part of this. My mother and my father were raised to believe in faith, to believe in anything is possible and hard work. And you know what my mom did? We got to work. Every day, my brother and I would work with my father, and she would get us instruments, and my brother would get on the organ and play music, and I would have maracas, and we would play music in front of his bed. My mom would sing Tagalog songs. My mom would put in Julio Iglesias on the 8-track. Elvis would rent Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee movies. And guess what, everybody? My father's spirit was lifted every day. And don't get me wrong, he had many, many challenges, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. He became my Lolo overnight. So, however, he was able to live until I was 19 years old. And every day, my father, my brother, my mom, and I would engage in short, meaningful activities to help not only help him mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, but help him remember who he was, his identity as a Filipino educated man who may not be able to practice medicine, but is still a father to 2 awesome boys and still a husband to an incredible mother. So these years, my mom would expose us to different forms of self-expression to help my dad, but also so that my dad could live vicariously through my brother and I. So throughout it, my brother and I became musicians. I became a martial artist. I became a Philippine dancer through our interpretation of Philippine dance. And I also became, my brother and I became studious students to do our best to honor our family. When he passed away, it was then that I realized that my family, their struggles was not done in vain, and I'll explain what I mean. My father, some say my father was not expected to live very long, but he lived until I was 19, and I had not known this information that he wasn't expected to live very long. But it was at the funeral that my mom shared that, and I thought, how the heck did he live so long? Why did he just die then? Why didn't he die right away? And what does it all mean? Basically, on his deathbed, the week before, it was the last conversation I ever had with him. I told him that I would do three things. I knew he was dying, and the three things were that I promised him that I will take care of my mom and my brother. The second thing is I realized my privilege, because he would tell us lots of stories of what it's like in the Philippines, and my mother was as well. And I shared that I promise I will use the activities, the skills that I've gained as a privileged Canadian, martial arts, Philippine dancing, extracurricular music, and I will share that with anyone that ever asks it of me and is in need of that. And then the last one is that I would go to the Philippines. So those three things were the three things that I promised my dad before he died. And the last one, where I promised him that I would go to the Philippines, that is a very important one, because my dad always wanted to take us to the Philippines. However, because of his brain tumor and because of some financial constraints, he was never able to do that. Fast forward my life until 2006. I meet Ate Jea Kawagas. I meet Tita Josie from Changing Together and the Filipino-Canadians Saranay Association, and many of you here in this chat. And I had the opportunity to fulfill my father's promise. That trip changed my life and set apart. It put me on a journey that will never be the same now, in a good way. In fact, going on that trip in 2006 with the Filipino-Canadians Saranay Association to share our Filipino-Canadian culture and our Filipino dancing, music, and self-expression was the experience of a lifetime. And I did not know that it would change me so much. And it wasn't just the people at the airport that said, "Mabuhay," and as soon as I stepped off, they give me a hug, where I've actually felt safe hugging them. Or it wasn't just the amazing Filipino food everywhere that you could just buy. And it wasn't the partying, which is amazing, going to different places. Ate Jea took me out everywhere. It wasn't just the amazing hospitality of everybody. It wasn't just the amazing, beautiful beaches, but I'll tell you what it was. It was recognizing that I belonged. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. And also, not just to the country, but it happened through the kids. Now, I know there's some people on this chat that were with me during that trip. We were on stage and we were performing for like thousands of kids. It seemed like thousands anyway. There's lots of people. And that was so amazing, getting the applause and being able to share our music. But for me, what changed my life was walking in and out of the tour bus, where I would see hundreds of kids with no parents, no shoes, some of them missing limbs, and asking for any type of attention that they could get. And that is what I feel my dad was trying to teach me and remind me about, is how lucky I was. Now, when at that moment where I met those kids, we had a cultural exchange, similarly to how my parents used to have potlucks growing up. They would have people over from various cultures and we'd have an exchange. Mine was in the form of hip hop. They say, Kuya, Kuya, can you beatbox? And I would beatbox for them. And they say, Kuya, we saw you on stage. And I said, what? You're not even wearing a uniform. How are you? And they pointed to the gate where they were looking through the cage, seeing me beatbox. And they say, Kuya, watch me now. And they would go, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, oh my God, this kid is way better than I am. And this cultural exchange, I don't know if many people know this story, but I took off for about an hour to 2 hours with these kids. And these kids were break dancers, they were singers, they were dancers. They just wanted me. And I don't know if they thought I was their ticket to like America's Got Talent or something, but they were talking to the wrong guy in a way. But it was a gift and a reminder. I thought, where are your parents? What are you doing here? You don't even have an arm. Like, how are you able to survive? And it is that moment that I realized, if my dad and mother decided to have us in the Philippines, same story, my mother being a teacher, my dad being a doctor, but my dad got sick, I could easily have ended up on the street. I don't know exactly, but I felt that these kids were given a tough set of cards. And it's just the reason I ended up with a life of privilege is because my mom and dad were living in Canada. Now, of course, poverty is much more complicated than that. But they said, Kuya, please come back. And I'm thinking, how am I going to come back to La Union? But I decided at that moment that I needed to come back. And later that night, at the mayor's house at La Union, the mayor had asked, does anyone want to say anything on behalf of the BALIKBAYAN group or the Canadian Saranae Association? And I stood up. I don't remember what I said, but I think I made a promise to come back. And someone came up to me after and he said, wow, you're going to come back. You said you're going to come back. Now, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, did I? I was just blown with inspiration. And I realized, oh my gosh, what did I promise? And so I ended up coming back the following year. And I don't want to go into too much more details, because if you just read a little bit more about the BALIKBAYAN project, you'll learn a lot more about what my story is. However, I just wanted to focus more on being grateful now. And the gratitude that I get from, I guess, life's journey of being a Filipino-Canadian is that it's always a changing one. It's not one of, oh, this is what it means to be Filipino. This is what it means now. Every time I go back, oh, I better eat this type of food, oh, because that's what my family eats. Or I better say this type of word this way, or I got to be able to express myself that way. And honestly, it goes back to what I've learned in my family roots, is that regardless of where you come from, the term BALIKBAYAN means to return to, obviously, to your country, but the project is really about returning to where you come from. So gratitude, I'm here today speaking with this privilege because of people like you right now who have made a huge impact in my life, people who have allowed me to go back to the Philippines, Tita Josie and this Changing Together for sponsoring Mike and I that first trip in 2007. And even before that, all our time with Ate Jaya and Tita Josie and the whole Filipino-Canadian Saranae Association that gave me that first trip, to even today, the kids that we work with in the Philippines who don't have parents, to the professionals in Baguio, in Manila, or even here in Canada, who really support me and my family. At the end of the day, it's all gratitude and nothing but love. So to wrap up my living book, and I think that's the cool thing, is that it's always continued to be continued. As long as the good Lord allows me another day to live, our living book continues. And I hope this little scratch, because it's hard to talk about your whole life in 30 minutes, but hopefully a little bit of a scratch gives you an opportunity to call me, to interact with me through Facebook, through I want to learn about your living book, right? But the main things is that now what a balikbayan means to me is service, it's gratitude, and it's action. And that action can be small. So my call to you is, what action can you continue to do? Or what action, how small or big it is, can you do to give back to either your old high school, your old country, or your former family, if it's meaningful to you? And what I mean by that is maybe there's some family members in your own life where you're a little bit estranged. And maybe that's just the way it is. Maybe that's just the way it is. However, is there an action or a thought or a prayer, something that you can do to hopefully honor what it means to come back to something? So anyways, I'll leave you at that. And I apologize for the tangential ways that I've taken this living book, but because it's a living book, you're getting the authentic JonJon. This is who I am. If it was an actual book, I could read it to you. But because it's living, you're stuck with a dynamic, attention deficit challenged person. So I love you all. Maraming salamat po. Thank you so much. And it is an honor to be part of this esteemed group.
Wow, amazing. What an inspiring story, JonJon. Oh, you made us all, I am almost teary-eyed. Anyway, before I start to cry, can I ask anyone to start off the conversation? Anyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to start off the conversation with JonJon. Anybody? Oh, if you could look at the bottom, there is a place there where you can raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, I can call on you and recognize you so that you can start asking questions. Anybody? Ooh.
Tita Josie, you had something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I can see Josie. Okay, Josie, please unmute yourself. There's at the bottom, you unmute yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. JonJon, thank you very much, Ihong. You really did so well. And I will not forget the time when you and the rest of the group really came with us. And frankly speaking, I will never forget those days, because that was the time when we really showed to the people of La Union that even if you were born in Canada, you were still the Filipino who was doing the tinikling and all the whatever dances that you were showing. And you really made a very good impression. And I'm so glad to hear that you are holding on to the torch and moving forward, because unfortunately, many of your age level do not even think how important heritage is to them. And that's the reason why here at the Filipino-Canadians Saranay Association, we don't have the group that we used to have before, just like your group with Erica, with the rest. And so if we can really build that with your help in your own generation, to really say, oy mga bata, mga kababayan, we really have to really keep our heritage. That's very important, even if we call ourselves Filipino-Canadians here in Canada. So Ihong, I don't know, how can you help? Your first thing you said is action. So how will you keep doing that now with the generation that you're in?
I think, thank you, Tita Josie. First and foremost, thank you. It's very much an honor to hear that coming from you. I think the biggest thing for action is just connection. And it starts with a conversation. And in fact, the way I got involved with the Filipino-Canadian Saranay Association, I was already practicing as an OT. You know, I was involved in many, as you know me, people who know me, I'm involved with too many things, right?
Yes.
And so why did I want to go to the Philippines? To be honest, why did I want to go to join the Filipino-Canadian Saranay is through my friends, because I had Lindsay, my cousin, who was directly involved, and Angel, so these are my peers. And I think to get to the youth, you got to get with peers. So sharing it and connecting through social media. And I know right now it's tough. In a pandemic, it's hard. How do you practice Philippine dancing by yourself virtually, right? And I think it's not impossible. I think it's possible, and what we can do is do call outs. And it's word of mouth, really. A lot of times I used to think, oh, we got to market hard. And which I got to put a little plug for my Philippine documentary called BALIKBAYAN. I was so worried that I wouldn't have as many people come because we were premiering at the Edmonton Film Festival. So I bought the Facebook ads, right? Like I paid $50 and it reached like 5,000, maybe 8,000 people across Canada. And so people know about the film now, and we actually had a lot of people there. However, what's more important is I had more people come because of word of mouth. And I called them up. I did it the old school way. I just called people up and I said, hey, can you come? Or I sent an email directly. And that's how we connect. And we start with one. Right now, my wife and I are exposing my daughter to Ukrainian dancing and Philippine dancing. So Paula, my wife, is part Ukrainian and half French. We had decided that it's really, really awesome if our daughter Lena can experience both of our cultures. And so because Lena has come already with us to the Philippines 2 times, so she's only 2.5 already, right? So but she's come at age 6 months, 7 months, and then 1 year and 7 months. She's already been exposed to tinikling and pandango sa ilaw and maglalatik and Paula's Ukrainian dancing. And you know how she does it? Of course, Paula can teach her doing the steps, but she also goes on YouTube and puts Ukrainian dancing on the screen. So we can do this, Ate Jaya, Tita Josie. We can do this. It's just we got to start small again. Yeah. One-on-one connection and consistency. And we don't want to make people feel bad for missing something. So it's just when it can work, it can work casually, right? You start with that, and I feel like we can build up our generation again. You're gonna have one new student for sure, and that's my daughter. So don't worry, we have one.
Okay, next question. Anybody else? Please ask JonJon.
I think Tala wanted to ask a question.
Okay, Tala? Where are you, Tala? I saw that Mati already left. Oh, here, Tala. Go ahead. Unmute yourself, Tala.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see all your faces.
Hi.
That's pala pala.
Where's JonJon? I'm on my phone, so I can only see like 4 people at a time. But JonJon, thank you so much for sharing your story. And it's so nice to see your face and personality again, even if it's on a screen.
Thank you, Tala.
Your story, some of it I know because I lived some of it with you, which is awesome. And I felt as you were talking about traveling to the Philippines for the first time, I think that was my second time. And it was also, like, I mean, everything that you were saying, I felt it very much as well. And I think you connected probably more with a lot of the youth, just your personality. You're very good with people. I'm the opposite. I'm terrified of humans, but anyway. So yeah, it was really great to hear you speak about that and feel the emotions and recalling all of that trip as well. Oh, maybe I lost. Am I still here? Oh, here.
Yeah, you're still there.
And then talking about like, what can we do to like keep the, you know, keep the culture alive and whatnot. I just had a thought. I was like, I feel like, because like everyone on this call is kind of like, you know, we're all in the same community, but it's like, how do we expand and grow it? And I'm in Toronto now, so I'm thinking like, how can I, like Mama has asked me to do a living book, but I'm like, there's so many cool kids in Toronto who have like a way more interesting story, or who I feel are like kind of, you know, it's all subjective, but I'm like, how do we like bring in, you know, like now the Toronto community, like how can I be a connector or something? How can we spread this beyond just like our group of like people who love and support us, but like let's grow it. So that's my goal. I want to connect people, and I don't know how yet, but anyway, we'll figure it out. And then an actual question, because sorry, I'm just rambling. A question for you. You talked about how you made the promise to go back to La Union, but I don't know if you did go specifically back to La Union, and if you have, and I know you've been back to the Philippines many times, have you connected with like the same people? Like, have you grown sort of like long-term friendships or relationships with youth there, or with anybody?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tala, and so much love to you and Matty and the whole Berkus family. You guys were such loving people. I spent so many first experiences with you and at the Jazz family, and thank you so much for being part of that. And I'm inspired by you, Tala. You're an incredible artist. I've always been inspired by you. So thank you for doing that. You being you is the action, Tala, right? You be you. But yes, to your question, I did go back to La Union that following year. And in addition to going to Tacloban, which is another story, but I went to La Union, we went back to that same school. And we spent a week there with the mayor, and we taught hip hop and music every day for, I guess, for eight hours a day. And we had a great time. And that was Mike, this is crazy because that was Mike Refugia's hometown. So Mike grew up in La Union. He knew those teachers. Those teachers saw Mike as their, like, oh my gosh, you're back. Like, you're truly back. You're a BALIKBAYAN. And I'm not a BALIKBAYAN because I wasn't born in the Philippines, but in a way, I'm a generational BALIKBAYAN, right? So going back to Tacloban now. So how did we get to Tacloban City? Rob Booth, one of my best friends, was connected. I shared with him that I went to the Philippines with the Filipino-Canadians Association. And I said, brother, best experience of my life. I'm starting a project going to the Philippines. He said, you got to connect.
Listening, just JonJon Rivero.
You got to connect with the U of A business school. And I did. And they connected me with Tacloban City. There was an organization called YRAP that was connected with Streetlight Philippines, which was founded by a Norwegian man named Alan Johannesson, who is to this day one of my best, closest, dearest friends, who is honestly a guardian angel sent from heaven. Him and his wife started Streetlight Philippines and has made a difference in thousands of children living on the street in Tacloban. In 2007, if you guys check out my documentary, which hopefully will be available on some kind of platform soon, you'll understand the story of how we got connected with this organization. But the children that I saw in 2007 are now adults that I saw in 2019. And I've been going back with my wife, Paula, and our BALIKBAYAN project team, and we've seen them grow and grow every year. And it's incredible. They are like my brothers and sisters. They're truly, Tala, like my brothers and sisters. And there's so many stories of resilience, so many stories of trauma and overcoming trauma, or still living with mental health challenges, addictions, the gang life, the barcada life. It's in and out. But I'll tell you what, that's what our project means. life is gritty, and the Balikbayan project is not to get rid of the grit. It's to shine light on the grit and celebrate that grit together in a safe way. One success story I will share is a boy named Marvin. Marvin Bellio is an incredible young man. When I met him, he was 12, and he actually looked like he was 6, right? But he was 12 years old. He's now 25, and he is a graduate from the criminology program, and is going to be a police officer. And his whole vision is to give back to his roots at the Streetlight Orphanage. Streetlight has now become a helper of frontline healthcare. So they're such an incredible organization. Something that some of you may or may not know, but Typhoon Yolanda destroyed our orphanage in Tacloban, because it was right in the path. Our orphanage, sister orphanage, Streetlight Philippines, is literally on the coastline of the sea, where the typhoon wiped it out. But the resilience of these kids is that they are stronger than I'll ever be. Pretty much after surviving the typhoon, after surviving the flood, 30 feet high, right? They're on top of the roof, and we have footage in my documentary of this. We were just there 3 weeks prior doing My Name is Trauma workshop. And then I'm on CNN in Canmore, Alberta, in my key creative retreat. And I turn on CNN and I see Anderson Cooper interviewing our kids, saying, "You survived this typhoon." And they're like, "What typhoon? This is something that that happens all the time." Right? And to me, that is incredible. Of course, there's challenges, the fight, flight, fright, being traumatized, being in shock. And that's kind of what we have to offer, right? It's how to deal with that fight, flight, or fright response. And so like the kids, Tala, are not kids anymore. They're adults. Some of them have their own families. And sometimes I go to them for emotional support. And sometimes they come to me, and Paula and Ryan and some of our other members. So, and then to your question, how do we expand our community? I think we can expand, but I don't feel a pressure to expand fast. I almost feel like there's so much richness. You're so right, Tala. There's so many cool people everywhere, from every nation, from every background. But how often do we fully get to really get deep with people that we even know, right? And so I think you should honor your amazingness and do a living book, because you are amazing. And yeah, just because, honestly, sometimes we take our immediate friends for granted. It's the law of familiarity. If you're exposed to something enough, you become familiar with it, and the value of that goes down, right? It's like we don't know what we don't have until it's gone. And so I would rather get to know this group first, and share the amazing things from the people that are closest to me that I haven't even really opened up to yet, or they haven't opened up to me yet. And that is inspiring. That's something we can get behind. And that word of mouth is going to go deeper, because it's more about quality over quantity, which is something I need to practice more of, right? And that's something from the Philippines I recognize. Sometimes, one more thing I want to share is that in the Philippines, it's more of a joke. Instead of getting quality chinelas, right, that's going to last for like 5 years, they add more padding to the bottom of the non-quality chinelas. So it's like it's rubbing instead of like fixing the problem. It's like they're just going to add, and let's add more plastic. Let's add more rubber. Anyways, love you guys.
Thanks, JonJon. I think I see other hands. I saw other hands earlier. Gia, do you have a question?
I have a question. No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment about JonJon, because I've seen him in action when I went to the Philippines with the Saranay group in 2006. And I saw him interacting with the kids in that cage-looking classrooms. And then he went with us when we went to Makati, and we stayed in the condominium of Will Fladores, the late Will Fladores. So JonJon, I know you more intimately than anybody else because I've seen you in your underwear when we were sleeping in only one bedroom in that condominium, and you were sleeping with Machi and Abby, and I was sleeping with Tala and some other girls, Lindsay, I believe. And
Yeah.
I've seen you in your underwear. So,
That
but
is true,
anyway,
Tita.
what I want to say is that I've also seen you in action in Edmonton. There was one time that I was, I believe, in a Tim Hortons on 82nd Avenue. And this is just to show you what kind of person you are. There were homeless people outside the Tim Hortons. And a lot of people were kind of walking away, trying to stay away from the homeless. And what you did when you passed by, you actually sat down with them and you started engaging them in a conversation. I was watching you from out inside the Tim Hortons, and I couldn't believe it. You are such a young person, but you actually showed such sympathy and empathy for those men that were sitting outside. And you sat there, and I was watching you, and you were there for quite a long time, just engaging those men. So I was really amazed. I was in such awe and admiration for you as a young person.
Wow.
So, and that is something that everybody, all young people should learn to do. And this is what I think, that when you went home to the Philippines the second time, I kind of suspected when I heard your Tita Josie told, she told me you were going back. I thought, okay, this kid is going back to La Union and he's going to engage those young kids in the cage, and he will do something with them. And I wasn't surprised, and I learned that you had been back several times. And I would like to call even Untala and my nephew Anton, who's I think also attending, to emulate, to follow your example, because you are an outstanding young person and everybody should
Wow.
follow what you're doing.
Wow, Tita Noreen, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah,
That's so
thank you,
beautiful.
Noreen. Yeah, thank you. Now we have our living book, and that is why we have a living book. And in the library, you can borrow the library so many times, our living books, and I can see Christina, our first living book. You can borrow them again. If there is a demand for more people to listen to their story, we can borrow Christina, we can borrow JonJon, and whoever will be the next living books. So don't worry, we will listen to your story over and over again. Okay, now, anybody else? We have a lot more coming in. Anyone who wants to ask questions? Yes,
I just
JonJon?
wanted to add to Tita Noreen, the reason why Tita Noreen, I think that's ingrained in me, is because my father was also on the outside of society after his brain tumor. And so for me, and this is why I work with children with special needs and the people who are traumatized. Because that's the way I was raised, in a sense. I want everyone to feel welcome, even though my father did not feel welcome, right? In the medical community, in the Filipino community necessarily, because he had a brain tumor. And so I just see people for who they're greater than what they show. People's stories are deeper than their circumstances. So anyways, thank you, Tita Norina, for sharing that.
Oh,
I didn't know you were watching me.
Thank you for being yourself and for honoring your father and your family.
Thank
and
you.
the Filipino
Salamat.
community here.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Okay. Anybody? More questions?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Oh, Christina.
Yeah, sorry I'm
Yes, we
late.
can hear you, but we cannot see you,
Yeah,
Christina.
sorry,
There you are.
yeah, sorry I'm late.
Yeah.
So sorry I missed the story, but I was at BALIKBAYAN and we did have a chance to chat a little bit, John, at the screening. So I have a little bit of the story. Yeah, I'm interested to know, and you kind of mentioned it just earlier, like how your childhood growing up, especially being born in Canada, has affected your interest in going back to the Philippines, especially that many times, and giving back to the community. Because let's face it, not everyone, including Canadian-born Filipinos, are as interested or feel connected to their culture, or even if they do grow up with a Filipino community, they might not have an interest in contributing to the community. So I guess how, have you felt different, I guess, from other Filipinos your age or even younger in that sense, in terms of how you perceive your connection to the Filipino community?
Yeah, I will say that growing up, and thank you, Christina, and I loved your living book last month. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming to the film and connecting with me. I really, really appreciate it. To your question, I definitely felt like an outsider growing up in Regina, Saskatchewan, in the sense that I looked different, but a lot of my closest friends look different too. So many ways we found each other. You know, I mentioned earlier in my talk that I grew up with the United Nations. Some of my best friends represent a variety of different cultures and ethnicities. At the same time, we felt like we needed to fit in, and I'm a direct result of that. And the way I think, the way I talk, my accent, you know, is from Regina, Saskatchewan, and I'm proud of that. However, the times where I would feel different were maybe some socioeconomic differences. So my best friends had cabins, they had second homes, they had fathers that could go play catch with them. I didn't have a father that I could play catch with. You know, I became a martial artist because of my dad, but it was through him playing Bruce Lee movies. You know, he couldn't walk and move the way that he used to with his brain tumor. So in many ways, my biggest role model was my brother, Joel. I think he's on this call. Joel, is that you? I think he's on the call, which is awesome. But
yeah, that's me.
My brother, Christina, was a big influence through music, and he paved the way a lot through being a Philippine dancer. So him and his friends made it cool, in my opinion, to dance Philippine music. So even at a very young age of 5, 6, and 7, I was aware of some other Filipino families they appreciated watching the Philippine dancing, but they would say, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to dance that. Everyone's gonna look at you." But it was my brother and my co-producer of the film, BALIKBAYAN, Bernie, one of Joel's best friends growing up. That cohort had a huge influence on me because they did it anyway. They danced. They did the Filipino cultural exchange. And they were in their early teens and then in their late teens. So they paved the way for my generation. Yes, there were people in my cohort that were like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to wake up every morning, Saturday morning, and practice and go to the church and dance for hours on end. But my goodness, some days I didn't want to do that. But I'm so fortunate that my parents and my brother made it cool for us to do that. So I did feel different, but I was proud of being different. And in fact, that's kind of like my psychology today is I want to be different, and I want to celebrate the differences because everyone is different and we're all the same. Don't get me wrong. We're all the same, but we're very different, and that's okay. There's a place for each and every one of us. I did get made fun of for being Filipino. for having different Filipino food. And there's times where I was ashamed of my lunch because my mom would put some very intense patis tasting foods. And I would open up and everyone like, what's that smell? And of course, you know, kids can be mean, right? And so, but you know what? One of my best friends who's Polish and Caucasian would say, and English would say, stop it. He's Filipino. And this food is good. I've been to his house. And people would be, all right, take it easy, take it easy. So I have experienced racism and I have felt different, you know, Christina, but there's going to be ignorance everywhere. Going back to the Philippines is like a lifelong thing. How do I view myself now? Well, I see myself still as an outsider, right? I still see myself as an outsider. I am an outsider whenever I go to the Philippines. However, I have an open heart and they see it. They see it clear. And my wife and I are always of the thoughts that we're perfectly imperfect. So we're not without fault, but we're willing to learn. And people, when they meet us, they know that, or we let them know that, showing that vulnerability. So I don't think I'll fully feel like, you know, fully Filipino, but that's okay. I'm not fully Filipino. I'm Filipino-Canadian, right? So that's just my experience.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Thank
My
you.
computer just shut down on me.
You can watch the answer on
Yeah.
I don't see any hands raised, although earlier there were. Gia, okay, I see your hand now. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Gia.
Okay, I'm in now. All right. So first of all, I'd like to thank you once again, JonJon, and also I've always been a fan of you and Tala, Mati, all your accomplishments. Starting with Saranay, I've seen you guys grow. You were very young since we started Saranay, and I'm so proud of all your accomplishments. And I was just wondering about your trip in the Philippines. How have the local and national Philippine government agencies respond to your Balikbayan project? Was there good reception from the government? Or?
Yeah, it's a very controversial question.
Oh, okay.
which I like because we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it, and I'm glad you asked that question. And thank you, Ate Jay. I see you as a role model, and you're like my ate. You are my sister. So thank you so much for always taking care of me and leading us. And to Mama Jean too. Thank you for being our inspiration. Anyway, yes, the government. I will say the municipal government has always been has known about us and has been very helpful in Tacloban City specifically. But tries to make sure that they're following the guidelines, which I really appreciate. And what I mean by guidelines is just still feeling us out. Like, what is this group, this Canadian group that keeps coming and is not asking for any funding? They're not paying, you know, they're not charging anybody anything. So I always felt that there's this trying to feel us out, trying to trust us. Like, what's your intentions? And I always tell them, our intention is to be here, and that's it. Yeah. Right. And so that we're always on good terms, but sometimes there's conflict between provincial government and municipal government and national government. And so I'm not here to explain and to say that I'm an expert in Philippine politics, because I'm not. I'm far beyond it. And I don't want to disrespect government at all. I will say the reception has been on a more local level, very receptive. On a national level, I would say they don't know us. And maybe now that I have a film out, I think this film is gonna garner some attention, which I may or may not want. However, it's too late. I've already put it out there. But I honestly feel like every Filipino person that we've worked with has been more than receptive, right? It's just the entities. It's not the people. It's sometimes the entities that can get a little bit confusing as to how does it work, right? All these moving parts. And that's why I'm very frontline. I'm very like, let's get a group, let's keep it simple. Let's get a group of awesome people that want to volunteer, and let's find the need. And there's always a way to find the need. There's never not a need. There's always a need. And let's do work together and let's collaborate. Sometimes that alone puts people on a skeptical view. Like, why are you here? What is your reason for being here?
Yes.
So, and then those people in their personal lives will step up. So maybe they are an official of some kind of body, but they don't necessarily want to get the body involved. They'll take off their professional hat and they'll engage personally. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
Rather than say, I'm affiliated officially, because everything's so official, it becomes, I realize the importance of formalities in the Philippines, and just any country. The importance of formal communication, formal introductions. Even like when people attend a seminar, they value a certificate that is of participation, signed by JonJon Rivero, Paula Audrey Rivero, a key creative. If I don't sign it, it's not valuable. If I sign it and it has their name and their name is spelled correctly, it's frame it. And I'm like, I just talked randomly about stuff for like an hour, but to them, it wasn't just an hour. It was professional development. And that's when I decided, my goodness, I shouldn't just be talking. I should be giving with a formal educational intent. And sometimes that the government may see this as, oh, okay, well, we'll let the BALIKBAYAN group do their thing. And sometimes it's like, can you help us get more help, or like help more people? And I think they want to. Sometimes the systemic ways is just like this. Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
You certainly, did a good job and tried everything to make a difference in your own way with your team. And congratulations again.
Okay. I can see others. I cannot see others. Anybody else who wants to ask? We have about less than 20 minutes before we end this 1 hour and a half storytelling. So there are still others who have not spoken or who have not asked anything from JonJon. Chi, you're awake. Do you want to ask JonJon anything?
Yeah, hi, everyone.
Unmute yourself, Chi. Unmute yourself. Chi, we cannot hear you.
There was a message on my screen that said the host muted me. Ha.
Oh. Okay, apologies.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, no, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to congratulate you, JonJon, for your film. And I also wanted to tell you that I've always been a big fan of what you do, of the work that you do. We never really got to work together because I came back to the Philippines just as you joined Saranay. But I feel like even though we haven't worked together, we made that connection. So I consider you as like one of my friends from Canada. And I'm really proud of every time I see your work pop up on Facebook. And so I just really wanted to congratulate you and thank you for all the work that you've done in trying to connect the Canadian and the Filipino parts. And yeah, I hope I get to see your film soon. I don't know where it's streaming. If it is already, send me a link because I don't know where to see it. But yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chichi. And you were very pivotal. Also, you showed Lindsay and I, you made us feel part of your family. I really, really appreciated that. So you made Manila, which can be a very big, overwhelming, lonely city, feel smaller. And I appreciated you taking us on the metro and showing us around. Yeah. And I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. And right now we're doing the film festival circuit. So we're just waiting back on like 20 more film festivals, 25 more film festivals. And after that, hopefully one of our interested distributors will be able to distribute our film and license it to maybe, I don't know, I'm praying for Netflix or Prime, Amazon Prime, or somewhere where it can be seen. And if not, I will send you the link so you can watch it for free. Regardless, you'll watch it. Don't worry. And I'll get everyone a link to it eventually.
Yay.
Yeah, we have Zoltan. But I just want to say something before Zoltan. You know that Chichi had been trying to zoom in since our first event, but it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning in the Philippines, and she's still sleeping. So I think she made an effort to listen to you. She missed Christina, but she's here. So thanks, Chichi. Now,
I was there too, but I didn't. I only caught the last bit of it.
Okay.
For Christina's living book.
Yeah. Okay. Zoltan.
Hi guys, thank you so much. It was really joy to be with you. I was always kind of a little bit standing on the sideline, watching, of course, Tala and Mati. I was so happy that they had some very, very good company. And JonJon, probably we never really talked more than just greeted each other, but but I always liked the whole group there. I was so happy that they grew up in that atmosphere, and it's such an important thing that they had similar way of thinking, similar kind of background, which is a little bit, of course, mixture in Canada. It's a different thing, but the same things are going also for the Hungarian community, for that matter. But I I don't know whether I should really do this, but bring the whole meeting to a kind of full around. Just wanted to mention that I am the father who will leave my harmonica for my kids.
Wow.
I can't hear.
Mute.
Do you want to jam? I wonder if it's the same.
Awesome.
So probably maybe it will be Tala probably who will get it when I'm gone. But anyway, it was fantastic to listen to your story, and I'm really happy. Yeah. So God bless you all actually, and God bless you, JonJon. I wonder, of course, if you know anything about Ukrainian heritage or something from your wife's part, because of course, on the other hand, here is another little part. Maybe we can connect that when the Ukrainians are proudly eating some food that real Hungarian, real Ukrainian food, practically is the same as the real Slovakian, real Hungarian, or really any kind of food in that area of the world. So we eat the same thing. So will you have some stuffed cabbage maybe during Christmas?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tita Zoltan. I actually, I used to call you Tita Z or Tita Z. And I think I always appreciated your positive support every rehearsal. Every time we meet, you're always in such good spirits. And I actually loved the fact that you would share about the Hungarian culture, because my brother, he's on this call, his name is Joel. Joel is married to a Hungarian lady. And so so I very much appreciated you telling me about Hungary all the time, and celebrating that. And the fact that your kids were both Hungarian and Filipino.
Well,
That's like my niece and my nephew, my brother's kid.
incredible, incredible. Of course, it's always a very, very dangerous situation. I'm really sorry, Noreen probably would like to shut me up already, but it did happen with me, for example, that at a physics conference, I saw a presenter had a beautiful Hungarian name. So I go to her and say, "Oh, you are Hungarian?" She said, "No, but my bastard ex-husband is." So one never really knows, but I'm happy that your nieces are well in a good family with Hungarian background.
Yes.
I think you know the brother.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
we've met them.
Oh, well, you tell her.
The daughter of Peter and.
Oh, okay. I actually know your brother then. Noreen just told me that from the Peter's daughter is the
Yes.
wife. Oh, okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Peter was gone a few years ago.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yes. Small world, right?
Would you say anything about the world to be small?
It is small. And you know what? The mixes of different cultures, that's the wave of the future. And it's not even the future, it's now. Look on this call, all the interracial
oh my goodness, yeah. So I didn't even realize that he is your brother. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
I
we're
see.
connecting him.
Yeah, I see Bob Zuber, our good friend Bob Zuber, who has been attending all our living book. You have anything to say, Bob? Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Bob.
I know, Jean. It's a button. I have to find it. No, I
can hear you now.
No, I can't. But anyway, no, it was a great presentation. I wouldn't do a living book myself if my life depended on it, JonJon. So there is zero chance that I would ever agree to do something like that. But good for you.
Thanks, Bob. And maybe we'll consider that as your living book. That statement right there.
Yeah, that is as much of a book as anyone's ever going to get. But good on you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for joining us, and I appreciate you sharing the sentiment. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have only a few minutes left, and we don't want to stretch it more. We have Sween is raising his hand, but I would like to call on Josie now to give the acknowledgements and appreciations, and then Sween will have the last word. Okay. He's shaking his head. Okay, Suhin, before Josie. Unmute yourself, Suhin. Oh, Joel
okay, sorry.
wants to talk. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, I won't take up too much time. Not really a question. Well, I guess one question, but mostly a comment. Bro, we're so proud of you. Dad's proud of you. Mom's proud of you. We, as a kid with our Filipino dancing, I didn't know any better. I just did what I was told, being a good Asian child. You have to dance the Magalatik, you have to come to church every single week, play the organ, do your best. So I know Dad's smiling on you and your accomplishments. I'm really proud of you. Really quickly to Berkesh Zoltan, Najanyo, your harmonica was fantastic. That's just very good in Hungarian. Is a shout out. I love seeing cross-cultural collaborations like that. It really warms my heart. But so my question, brother, is now what are the next steps? I know you have a lot of attention. For better for worse, you're now in the spotlight. So how can you maximize this opportunity? I know you'll find ways to do so because you're very good at finding those opportunities. But what is your ideal next step forward to help move this into even bigger and better things?
Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Kuya, and everyone. This is my brother, my big brother, Kuya Joel Rivero, and he is first and foremost one of my first role models. He acted as the father figure and still is of our family. So when my dad got sick, my brother stepped up, and it was a little early for him He was only 7 years old, but he carried the torch for our family. So I love you, brother, and all of our success is your success too. So thank you. But the next steps for how do we pivot? And it's doing these types of interactions, putting them on the web, sharing it. And I think thinking big, but acting small. So thinking big, acting small is one of my key things for marketing, is being authentic with our individual interactions and sharing that, and then thinking big by sharing it. So that people, when people watch it, like the movie, they can hopefully connect with it. Or me doing a little video, or all of us on this group chat, talk about the BALIKBAYAN project and maybe share what you're interested in doing. And the BALIKBAYAN project isn't just about going to the Philippines. It's going back to wherever you came from. And that could be your school, it could be your alma mater, or it could be your own belief system, right? And then sharing that with somebody, being courageous. And Bob, your form of courageousness was already there. You don't have to be your living book in the sense of doing this, but you just sharing that, hey, this is all I'm comfortable with. That's your boundary. And I will know that now, Bob, right? But I want to connect with you. Maybe on an individual basis, we could learn about each other's living book on a smaller way, right? Not everyone is meant for the spotlight. Now that I'm getting this attention, and obviously there's a part of me that probably wanted that. Now I'm sure it's gonna be a little overwhelming. I think it's important that I stay grounded in why I did this. And initially, it's for my dad and my mom, and for you, bro, to honor our family. But why do I continue to do this? It's for me, my wife, and my daughter. That's the reason why I do it. It's for me, it's because I want to remind myself of who I am and what I'm capable of doing. For my wife and my daughter, I want to be a better human being for them. And for my daughter, I want to create a generation of help them create their own identity, but also honor where they come from. So my call to action has always been to look inward. Your form of BALIKBAYAN may not be to go to the Philippines. Your form of BALIKBAYAN might be just remembering who you are, or going back to that one family member that needs that attention, or honoring that one hobby that you used to love that gave you so much joy. Whatever it is for each person. And that may or may not be translatable by watching the film, but maybe it creates a conversation so that people can start talking about those things. So yeah, that's
JonJon.
Next step.
Last question from Suihin.
Yes, maraming salamat po, JonJon, I think, for your inspirational story. I know, because 30 minutes is too short for so many chapters in your life, but certainly I think you've shown us how there's a flow of struggles, family struggles, that still remains hopeful, which leads you to the seeds of BALIKBAYAN project, of course, connecting to the street children in Tacloban. And I think the situation of street children, you're very well of that, is serious and actually growing in numbers. I think let's just maybe up to 1 million now street children. I'm not sure the exact numbers. So there are many challenges there for street children in the Philippines, and there are many groups like Street Lights, and you probably have connected with PREDA, Father Sheikh Khalon in Olongapo City, which is also working with street children, rescuing them from sexual exploitation, trafficking, and so on. And I think Father Sheikh Khalon PREDA had also a link with Saranay here in Edmonton in terms of their fair trade project, because they also through fair trade bananas, dried bananas all over the world, and that has helped also, of course, what they're trying to do with the street children. But the issue with Father Sheikh Khalon always raised is, yes, we can rescue and help individual street children, as you've done it through Street Lights and BALIKBAYAN project. But the root causes of street children remain in the society in terms of policies, economic policies, political will, and so on. So I was thinking, is there a possible extension to the BALIKBAYAN project, which is looking, for example, at what Canada as a government because government does give aid to the Philippines. To what extent perhaps there can be a movement within Ottawa to support more NGOs like Streetlights or PREDA, or even the work that you're doing in Balikbayan, so that more street children can be reached. And this also, in the sense, raise the awareness of Canadians about the situation of street children. And of course, there's only so much government can do in respect to another government. But I think all governments that are concerned with street children needs to raise their voices, and also, of course, to substantially assist programs and projects that will not only help street children individually, but actually hopefully move governments in those other countries to change policies that get at the root causes that lead to the plight of street children, to the situation of street children. So your thoughts there in terms of whether you think Balikbayan could move a little bit also to what the Canadian government is doing and what Canadian citizens can do more.
For sure. Thank you, Sui Hin. And I very much appreciate that comment, your comments. And I'll go back to the socioeconomic challenge of it's a greater systemic challenge that if you look at, and I've learned this from my wife, Paula, who is a registered social worker and a clinical social work background, that the ecosystems of poverty are such intertwined with a variety of different factors. And one of the main things that I feel like impacts a child's, I guess, ability to survive in that, it's kind of an encouraging one. And if I look deeper and I look at the smaller odds that are against children, I can get very depressed very quickly, as anyone on this call could, because we all love people and love children. But the one thing that I can sleep at night, I feel, where I can, I guess, turn a switch off. And it's not an ignorant switch where I'm like, okay, there's no more problems, I can go fall asleep. But there's only so much that a person can do. However, it is a lot. What one person can do is a lot. And it is your valuable time. And one of the things that I feel that gives me hope is that, let's say no systems ever change, ever. It's gonna get worse, and it's gonna get worse, and it's gonna get worse. I will wake up tomorrow still feeling hopeful, because they systems cannot take away my power of being able to choose how I think or what I do with my attitude. And that attitude is hope. And that attitude is believing in one kid. And you can make a difference. You said, Sui Hin, you can make a difference to one, but you may not be able to make a difference to many. But imagine if every person made a difference to one. Every person just made a difference to one. That next person is going to make a difference to one. And that's within the human capacity. But imagine you made the difference to 10. Now that multiplies to 10. And we know the law of exponential growth. In any type of investments or any type of exponential growth, it makes huge change over time. But initially it's like this, but over time, it's much, much bigger. So to your question about government, I think we need to get, yes, that would be faster change. That's a big systemic thing. But my effort, and I think all of our efforts will not be done in vain if we document those one-on-one moments of change. And I feel like those individual stories, movies like my movie, hopefully, will help create more movies or create more action. And I'm not here to change the world, but I'm here to change my world, myself, my action. And so that's how we get government to move. If I just go to the government and say, hey, government, we need more, do you know the situation in the Philippines? They'll say, do you know the situation here in Canada? We can't even take care of our own mental health, our own people here. And I'll say, yeah, but there's kids dying in the Philippines who don't have parents. To say, well, there's Aboriginal Indigenous kids who have died in our own country, and they're still trying to deal with that. And so I feel like we could have that. That's not my strength. That's not my lobby. Maybe there's lots of people who are going to watch this film who are going to connect with me and us to be able to lobby those. But I feel like the fastest way is to connect through the people, through the individual people, the individual stories, and they share that with another person. And right now we live in a time where you can share that at the click of a button and it goes to millions of people. So that's the virus I want to spread. That's my version of what's happening right now, the pandemic. I want to create a pandemic of positive stories, inspirational stories. And to your question, yes, I would love the Canadian government to help. I would love that.
Okay.
But I feel like the way to do that is through what we're doing individually and sharing it. Help me, Sweehin.
Salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you, JonJon. I know Sweehin would like to engage you more in a conversation, but our consolation is that this is a living book, so we can continue. And it's now past 7 o'clock. We don't want to hold you more than we promised. And there are a lot more to be said by Josie in the concluding portion of our conversation. So Josie, please.
Excuse me.
Josie,
Unmute
yourself.
It wasn't Josie raising her hand to speak. It was Raymond. And John, there's a few points I want to get to your comments about poverty later on. But first of all, about you going to the Philippines with the sponsorship of my good wife. I'm glad to see that you thanked her, but it also came at the cost of helping out our own daughter. And I helped out on that also too by signing the note at the bank. So you've got more thanks to spread around there, perhaps a little more thinly. Anyways, about poverty in the Philippines and in Canada, there's totally different. In the Philippines, it's a systemic problem that goes back to the days of the Philippine independence and before that. And since the Philippine independence, there has never been any political leadership that has advocated for the reform of the system and making the corrections necessary to society. For example, agrarian reforms that would be needed. In Canada, our big problem with poverty, excepting for a marginalized group in our native community, is drug induced. A lot of our poverty people are in poverty because of a drug problem and mental illness. And part of that mental illness flows from the drug problem, but not all of it. But the two are related. So we're not looking at similar problems, and the solutions are totally different on that. If you want to go to here in the Philippines, there has to be a structural reforms, and nobody's talking about that yet. Anyways, that's we're running out of time, and I don't want to take up as much time as anybody else has here has been speaking. Okay, thank you. Good. And now I'll leave it to my wife.
John,
thank you, Raymond.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond, for that interjection. John, I don't think you need to respond to that. If we start responding to Raymond, we'll have to stretch it for another 2 hours. So, and thank you, Raymond, because you have just started a very interesting topic for our next conversation. And now I would like to invite Josie for the closing remarks and acknowledgements.
Well, it's really a great honor and privilege to be here with everyone tonight. But first of all, I would want to say thank you to our Lingap Board of Directors, especially to our president, our secretary, our who's our editor there, is that Gia, and quite a few other people that are really part of Lingap. So first of all, I would say thank you, John, for really opening up all the good points that you have really learned from your parents, from all the different people that have really influenced you. And thank you for even saying thank you to Saranay, because to this very day, that little thing is continuously happening. And I believe in what you said, because I think we have the same, we have the same maxim. I believe in Mother Teresa's maxim. I do not do great things. I only do small things with great passion and love. And that's exactly what Saranay is really built upon. That's the reason why 40 years is still ongoing. So thank you, sweetheart, for being so really inspiring. And I hope this will be repeated because we need someone like you and Christina, the younger generation. Tala is another one that I would really want to listen to later on, because you will be the ones that will really influence the generation that we're really trying to convince that it is worthwhile to live up to the expectation of the traditions and culture, not just being Filipinos, but because of what you said, we are all the United Nations of the world. And if we will be able to do that, we can at least make a point. A little difference in this world will make a lot progress. So maraming salamat sa iyo, mahal. And to everyone, thank you again.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you, everyone.
Rosie. Thank you. And one last activity. May I call on Suhin? Unmute yourself.
Yes, on behalf of lingap-canada, Learning for Interdependence and Global Awareness of the Philippines, awards this certificate of appreciation to JonJon Rivero in grateful acknowledgement and sincere appreciation for the inspirational contribution as a living book. In this webinar series featuring inspiring and empowering stories of the lives of Filipino-Canadians, Filipinos and Canadians, and friends committed to building peaceful, just, inclusive, and sustainable societies in Canada and the Philippines, and Philippine-Canada relationships. November 21st, 2020, signed To Suhin, President Lingap-Canada. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
John, thank you very
Maraming
much.
salamat.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
By the way, that certificate will be mailed to you and also to Christina. We just emailed an attachment to Christina after her talk, but we will mail the certificates to you. I am already shut out, but I would like to invite all of you to our next Zoom activity, the Human Rights Celebration. The Human Rights Celebration on December 10. We are going to have a commemoration of the United Nations Human Rights Day. And please visit our website so that you can find out how you can participate in that celebration. So good night to all of you. Thank you so much. Maraming salamat po. Sleep well, have a good dinner, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Paul. Bye.
Good night, you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Keep safe.
Bye.